Texas, obviously conservative state, and now the school board in Texas is thinking about changing the state curriculum so students don't have to learn about civil rights leaders, and they also don't have to learn about Thomas Jefferson.
Why don't they want to teach them about civil rights leaders?
They don't want to teach them about civil rights leaders because they don't feel that they are important figures in social studies, okay?
Okay.
But they do feel that John Calvin is a very important figure in social studies. But, you know, the third president of the United States isn't. We should just erase him out of our textbooks and not think about him at all.
John Calvin of the Calvinists.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because there's so many Calvinists now in the United States of America. We're getting overrun with Calvinists.
Yeah. Look, this story enrages me, and it amazes me, too, that they think that they can do this and get away with it. They are going to do this, and they are going to get away with it. But it amazes me that nothing's going to be done to stop it. Because how can you just forget about the third president of the United States, the Declaration of Independence? How do you forget about any of that?
Whose idea was it, and why would anyone not want to teach Thomas Jefferson? What's their objection to Thomas?
Their objection to Thomas Jefferson is the fact that
he didn't
was
own enough slaves. That he was worried about this. He owned slaves, but he was conflicted about it. So they don't want it. They only want slave owners who were really like into it. If you weren't totally into it, or that he slept with one of his slaves, they don't want that.
Right. Well, they definitely don't like the fact that he was for the separation of church and state.
Oh. I like it that they're at least admitting that.
They're not admitting that, but that's the obvious reason.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, because, okay, let's get rid of Thomas Jefferson. You know, the guy who wasn't really for church and state being connected. But, you know, let's replace him with John Calvin, you know, the pastor during the Protestant Reform.
Really? Well, I mean, but the thing of it is, all the founding fathers, not all, most of the founding fathers were for the separation of church and state.
Right.
I mean, it's not like Thomas Jefferson was the only one. That's why it's in the Constitution.
No, but these guys are clowns.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
they've made...
Get in the argument with, right.
Let me give you examples, okay?
Right.
So they got rid of certain civil rights leaders like Dolores Huerta. She was the co-founder of the United Farm Workers of America. They got rid of her because they claimed that she's a socialist.
She's guest on the Young Turks.
She was a guest on the Young Turks? That's awesome.
Yeah.
So they got rid of her because they claimed that, you know, she's a socialist. We don't want her in our textbooks. However, they kept Helen Keller on, who is a socialist, who's a staunch socialist.
Helen Keller's a socialist?
Yeah.
Well, don't mention her name. We don't mention the names of socialists. Yeah.
So they're clowns. They're insane. So
Dolores Huerta, but I mean, whatever. I mean, I would say I don't know where in it's the Texas. It's the state of Texas.
The state of Texas. And what's interesting about this story...
Which has a gigantic Latino population, too, right?
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. So they're totally ignoring their Hispanic population, okay? Totally forgetting about their civil rights leaders.
Bother you, I would think.
Oh, it totally bothers me. You know how I am with the Hispanics.
Right. You love the Latino men, right? Yeah.
But and this is just a huge deal because right now the Obama administration wants to leave curriculum up to the states. Yeah. So the federal government will have no say in it, which I
think has always been the case. I mean, generally, that's I mean.
But when it comes to standardized testing, that's a federal thing.
Right.
There are certain requirements that are enforced by.
They're not being so foolish as to leave out Martin Luther King, right? They're not going to.
No, not Martin Luther King, but Cesar Chavez. That they're planning on getting rid of him too.
So they're just losing all the Latinos. Pretty much right.
Thurgood Marshall. I mean, they gotta strike the African Americans a little bit.
They're losing Thurgood Marshall.
Yes.
The first black justice of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Like the guy who argued for Brown versus Board of Education.
Yes.
Like the landmark civil rights case that desegregated the schools.
I believe that's Mr. Marshall. Yes.
It is. Are they going to teach the case, and they're just not going to mention who argued it?
I highly doubt they're going to teach the case.
They're going to mention Brown versus Board of Education? Are they going to mention the word Brown?
That's going to be taken out of all the textbooks. No brown, no black, just white.
Wow. Okay, well, they are clowns.
Well, see, things like this, and maybe I think I'm a little too...
Black?
That's probably one issue.
Yeah.
But whenever decisions like this are made, and because I'm not in this situation, because I don't have kids, because I don't live in Texas with kids in elementary school, whatever age this is going to affect primarily, I'm like, well, you know what? Let the ignorant people purposely be ignorant. They're setting themselves up for any kind of disaster. Although a lot of that's the thing. That's why I think it's wrong for me to say it, because of course everyone doesn't agree with this. It's just what the schools are setting up, and they're going to hurt other people. And basically, you're going to take out meaningful things and put in bullshit, so they don't know anything anymore. And really, it's going to hinder them in their life.
Yeah.
When they're not prepared for anything.
You can't let them do it. You can't let them do it because they're kids, and you got to protect. You can't let these folks get away with screwing up an entire generation of kids, because you pay for it down the road, because these kids then, it'll kill Texas's, long-term damage. It kills Texas's economy, kills a generation of kids coming out of college, and it slows everything down. I mean, one reason why we're getting our ass kicked by India and China is because we can't educate people correctly. And, obviously this is a small cog in our ability to do that, but part of it begins with not having the right, allowing, what's the word I'm looking for here, ass clowns, make decisions like this about education. And it's when you let sort of, political neophytes. It's like the Bush administration's decision to rebuild Iraq with 22-year-olds who went to either Bob's College and Grill, Bob's Bible College and Grill, or, Dartmouth, and go to Iraq and run the government. Like these 22-year-olds with, pleated Dockers and navy blue blazers, and really strong, and we're really excited to go work at the Republican convention in 2004. And then they're there and like, okay, here's what we're going to do with the money, and we are going to rebuild Iraq. Instead of like 57-year-old Middle East experts who maybe thought that we can't have Ahmed Chalabi come in and lead Iraq because he's been in Europe for 30 years. And they won't trust him. And it's the same kind of nonsense decision-making here, where you think Dolores Huerta is a socialist. Yeah, first of all, and?
Right.
Like, okay, maybe she is a socialist. What do you think the problem is there?
And also, what's wrong about teaching the meaning of socialism in schools and Marxism? These are things that I learned when I was in high school, and it was just part of the curriculum.
Right, you teach
so when you're out in the real world and someone comes to you and they're talking about socialism or Marxism, you know what they're talking about.